Okay, so we talked about those three core technologies really early on in that last slide set. um, this is the one that was always there. This is the HTML and HTTP. This is the that one thing that makes a web page really. This provides that skeletal structure to your document, to your application. So for today, as part of your work, which a lot of you got into last day, which is great. Now you'll have a chance to maybe move forward if you can. But we'll be talking about the HTML basics. So a lot of you've already done this. Maybe we're going to reveal a little bit more about what you've already done. I'm going to build a first page. And I'm going to, as we go through this course, I'm going to develop an app. So it's going to be similar in difficulty to Finstagram, but just something parallel. So we'll come back here day by day, and I'll just keep building upon this, and you guys can use that as a reference. And then we're going to talk CSS in a way, right? CSS, the cascading style sheets, which change the appearance of our web pages. We're going to just talk about the ones that come built into the browser. We move on to CSS next week. So how is a web page? This is kind of a funny question. It's really, how is a web page structured? Because we can look at this. Well, I'll show you the next slide. It says using boxes, right? Every one of these things that you see is nested in some sort of box. It doesn't actually look like a box. It actually looks like this. So if we do the same search, Calgary, Alberta, so that was just the Google home search page. I can view these boxes like what you saw illustrated on the slide by opening the inspector. This is a tool that comes built into every browser, I believe. So if I want to open the inspector, I can just basically right-hand click on any place on the page and select inspect. I'm not sure if anyone's using Internet Explorer. It probably isn't called inspect, but I haven't seen Internet Explorer, so I'm not really sure. But you look at this, and you look at your HTML skeleton up here, and you see the different boxes. I think that's not a good example. Here's our body. Here's a big box, and we start digging in, and every single one we start nesting. So these are all invisible ones. Let's find a better example here. Let's go down to one of the search results. So yeah, the boxes are kind of going down the page. You see how each one is nested. It's like fitting littler boxes into bigger boxes, and you can just keep going until you run out of memory on your computer. So here's a search result. That's the widest. I guess this would be the widest box here. I'm showing you this because this is a very handy tool. If you have something that's misaligned on your web page, which will happen, right? Just through syntax errors or just inattention, it just happens. This is a very valuable resource, and you can kind of go down and see where something has been structured poorly. So here we got a link, and each one in and out and up and down, and then we're on to the next box, and the next box, and the next box, and big boxes contain little boxes. So each one of these boxes has is created by defining a tag, an element. We have very common ones: header, footer, body, section, paragraph. These elements are created using these tags. I always say elements and tags interchangeably. Forgive me for that. I'm not sure if that's technically correct, but in my mind, they're basically the same thing: elements and tags. Without the elements, and this is what we did last day, you just have plain text. You remember how I just had that hello world with no style, with no nothing. The browser took it. There was no style associated with it. It's not really even a real web page. So some very common ones, and I suspect some of you have had some exposure to HTML. I know you know this one, H1. Who can tell me what's special about this one? Let's see what's special about that one. I'm surprised no one jumped on that. Okay, let's talk about some language. You're going to see why that's special as I go through the demo, but this is all part of why you're here as well. Just learning how to talk the talk. So we're talking about this element, or tag, or whatever you call it. The tag is made up of three constituent components. The tag itself. What's the A? Which one?
Article?
Not article. It's actually, we call it an anchor tag, but this is what creates the link on your web page. So if you want to link to another page, so that's the tag itself. Then we have attributes. In this case, we're assigning a value to this attribute, and this changes what the tag does, and how it behaves, and how you interact with it on the web page. So apart from this, we have some text content. And then, as with every tag, we have the close. No matter, well, there's a couple of exceptions, but for all intents and purposes, every opening tag has a closing tag, and anything you put in between that is text that's going to be displayed to the screen. Before you get to the text box, you can have any number of attributes, and each attribute is assigned a value, even if it doesn't look like it. There's a couple of weird ones where you just state them and they become true. So tag or element, attribute, and value. These are the words you need to know. So here's a normal tag, very ordinary. Can anyone tell me what the P does? Take paragraph. Yes, exactly. So really all this does, it just puts a little bit of space above the text and a little bit of space below the text as though you're reading a novel. Very ordinary, normal tag. Then we have that previous example, one with attributes. This one is another link. So if I were to put this on my page or on a demo page, you would see Google with it would be colored blue, and it would have a little underline underneath it. So you can go and you know that your mouse is going to change into a pointer finger, and you click on it, it takes you there, it takes you to this address. Sometimes, now this is like where it kind of gets weird, right? I said that every single opening tag has a closing tag. This is one of those exceptions, the image tag. I think you would have been able to get that one. So image, you just tell it where to find the image. In this case, it's somewhere off site. Did we see this last day? I put a pumpkin on the screen. So yeah. So when we're creating these boxes like we saw, and you saw me hovering the mouse over on the inspector, every time I went down or deeper into the nest, the box got smaller and smaller and smaller. This isn't always true, but this is by convention. We can have these tags nested as deep as we want. So here we have the article tag, the opener, we have the article tag closer. Anything defined inside of these two tags is part of that article. Likewise, we have a header. So maybe maybe you have a blog, maybe there's a title on this particular article. We have this header, which just says, okay, well, this is what I'm writing about. It was written by me. These are all part of the header, which are in turn part of the article. And this is how we nest tags. And this indentation is strongly encouraged. It's not necessary for the browser. You could write this all on one line, but this is for you so that you can find errors as they arise. Every time you nest a tag inside of another tag, just indent or press the space bar 2 times. And always be sure to line these things up. It makes debugging, makes understanding your code much easier. Yeah, so now you saw this a little bit as well. I showed you the skeletal structure of a web page. Every web page has 3 all-important tags. You can't really get away without these things. We have the HTML tag, which defines the entire body of the document. This is the tag on the very outside that contains all the other tags, the biggest box. Right below that, right at the top of the document, we have the head. And the head lets you define metadata, or lets you load scripts, or lets you load styles. You don't actually really see anything in the head. And that's what distinguishes it from the body. Remember what I was asking, why is the body important? The body, anything that's visible, anything that's meant to be seen, is contained in the box defined by the body. Anything in the head, it's going to impact the body, but you never actually see any of that stuff. Again, there's always an exception. I'll show you. So this is your bare minimum, bare bones web page. You don't really need this, but it's a good idea. All this is saying is that this is an HTML5 document, just in case there's any confusion. The default for most servers, I believe, is to assume it's HTML5. So this thing is kind of optional for that reason. But you see all the constituent components, the outer HTML box, the two inner boxes, the head where nothing gets displayed, with one exception, and the body where all your document content goes. You can't get any simpler than that. We also have these semantic tags. And I always hate talking about these things because they don't really do anything. I could be just as happy using ordinary spans or divs. They do have their purpose in that it makes it easier for you guys to read. But they say semantic, like there's some inherent meaning. Now this is where it kind of falls apart. These don't mean anything different to the browser. They mean different for us as humans. We know that if we look at this, probably the header is going to go at the top of a page or top of an article or top of some other internal document, right? That's where the semantic aspect comes in. We just use these sensibly, but we could use them interchangeably. We could put them anywhere. It doesn't make any difference to the browser. Same thing with the footer. Nav, you'd probably guess, so it's navigation. And the side, maybe it could be a footnote, for example, or maybe, when you're reading, I don't know, like those For Dummies books. I read a lot of those things. They always got that guy with a magnifying glass, and they got that gray. That could be an aside, as an example. Yeah, so some tags are meant exclusively to describe text. And here's that very ordinary, very common one. There's the P. But there's also tags that change the appearance of the text. Can anyone guess what EM that might do? It does italicize. Usually people guess bold, but you're right. It italicizes most of the time. Strong, I believe, makes it bold, right? And this is always browser dependent, and it's always dependent on what's been defined in your CSS as well. So we're not going to touch on CSS, but we might see an example of where these might come up, and you'll see these default styles built into the browser. So yeah, and here's that default styling. So by default, EM makes it italicized, strong makes it bold. Some other very common ones, H1 just of course makes it, increases the size of the font. So presumably this would be the biggest block of text on your page. Anything below that becomes a subheader, so on and so forth. All that to say is that it's the browser, it's not CSS. The browser does have some default styles, and these are some of those examples. Okay, so now just to go slow, I'm going to show you some neat stuff you can do with Cloud9. And this is what I'm going to do for the next 11 classes or something similar to this. So last day we started on, where did I put it? That's way too far down. Let me do a search here. Whoops, no, go back. All right, week 1, day 1. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this was Lighthouse Labs. This is the one I did. We brought that off the Git repository. What I'm going to do is just take advantage of Git. I'm going to make another identical copy. That's what this clone is. So from where I left it off last day, and you can always come back, you can look at, see whatever I did. I'm going to make a copy of that and create a brand new project. I will call this one week 1, day 2. And I will say, I'm going to call this my salvage app HTML skeleton. So that's the app. I'm gonna give you some backstory to that. But that's what I'm going to develop over the next 6 weeks. This isn't a part of Lighthouse Labs. Not this one anyway. That should be okay, I hope. Usually I don't set these things. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Lighthouse Labs it is. Create workspace. That's kind of weird. So this is going to leave off as we had it last day. I'll run the server, and you're going to see where we started off, and then we're going to start building upon this. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm also going to go to GitHub. So this is going to serve as a little bit of review as well. You're not going to need to do what I'm doing every single time, but I want you to understand and want you to start using Git today. So I'm going to start a brand new repository. Oh, all my workspaces just crashed. Sorry, bear with me. Probably don't need that. What did I call it? I called it October week 1 day 2 demo. And I'll say salvage app HTML skeleton. Okay, so I'll create that repository. It's just going to be blank. There's nothing there yet. And it's going to give me these helpful tips. Now, you guys saw this last day. I'm going to do it the fast way rather than just, belabor this point. So it's as easy as just taking this and copying it. In my case, I have to make sure that there isn't actually a remote already set. This might already be talking to the old GitHub repository. So I'm going to say git remote -v. Yeah. So this is the old repository. Week 1, day 1. I want to make a brand new one. So I'm going to get rid of this one. I'll say git remote remove origin. What's origin? Origin is the name of the repository. You can name it whatever you want, but by convention, if we have this idea of a centralized one, origin is the name we give it. So I'm going to get rid of that. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to add it again. Git remote add origin. So, those 4 keywords, but then I have to provide it an address as well. So this is what I got from, whoops. Sorry, I forgot I copied and pasted. No, I just made more work for myself. Try that again. Git remote add origin. Here's the new address. I hit enter. I say git status. And nothing to commit. I want to make sure, though, that this week 1, day 2 repository has all my work before I go. What do I have to do? This is the stuff you need to know. How do I send it from Cloud9 to GitHub?
You have to push it?
Exactly. Git push. And the first time you do this, because this is brand new, you always have to tell it to where you're pushing and what you're pushing. So I'm going to say git push origin master. And there it goes. There it is. I can come back to GitHub. I press refresh, and I'm going to go slow, and I'm going to keep reviewing this process as we go through it. So that looks good. Here's my index. That was the Halloween greeting. Let's make sure that we left it in a sensible state. Say run, open, and there we go. Happy Halloween. That's going to download the image. Oh yeah, spooky pumpkin. All right. So let's come back. Now let's start working a little bit slow. Maybe a bit of background. I'm going to show you one of my hobbies. So I guess one of my hobbies is terrible amateur video. It's only about 45 seconds, so just bear with me. How do I get to my account on this thing? So this is what I like to do in my spare time. I've created this machine to burn scrap wood so that I can either cook with it or I can heat my house. That's kind of my ultimate goal here. So I tried to create a heat exchange. This was one of the results of my experiments. This is all recycled. That's just kind of my shtick. All this stuff was just found scrounging through alleys and whatnot. And there's the rocket stove. So that's kind of the heart of it. Fuel goes in here. Flame shoots up there. I'm trying to heat air, trying to heat an oven, whatever it might be. Trying to do this without actually paying any money. So everything you've seen here has been salvaged. And that's kind of the backbone of what I'm trying to do. So first things first, let's just get rid of some of this stuff. Now I'm going to show you right off the bat that one exception, because remember what's special about head. You don't actually see any of this stuff. And I kept muttering.
Sawdust.
Whoops.
Rocket stoves.
Yeah. Just to show I'm not crazy. Lots of guys are into rocket stoves, right? All right. All doing the same thing. This is kind of that one exception. Anyone know any guesses as to what's going to do if I do this? Let's see. Yes, that's exactly what it's going to do. So notice the difference here. Now I just emptied everything, so this is going to be a blank document. The only thing that's going to change is up here. Salvage. That's the title I set. So is that an exception? I'm not sure. Head you don't typically see, but that's how you set that that thing in the that title on the browser tab. You can also set a favicon here, which will put that little image as well. I don't have a favicon handy, I'm afraid. Okay, so off to a good start. All right, so I'm just going to call this, I'm going to use H1, use some of these default styles. I'm going to call this Dan's Salvage and Junk Tracker. All right. So now the idea that I had was I'm just going to like take pictures because I like to go through alleys. I like to find scrap wood. But sometimes I don't have my car with me, don't have a truck. I just need to remember where it is. So I want to take a picture, get the GPS coordinates off the picture, and then just produce a Google map on my webpage. So if anyone else is like me, pawing through the trash like a starving raccoon, they're going to come to my website and they're going to see all the good stuff that I found. Maybe they need it. Maybe I can come back later and get it. So just to show you, this is kind of apart from what we're doing here, but these are the possibilities. So I went today and I took 3 pictures on my cell phone. I've got 5 pictures in there, but it's actually only these 3. I'm going to use a program called Image Magic. Image Magic has a program called Identify, I think. And I'm going to look inside of this image. Verbose. That's just a flag, so it's going to show me all the information contained in the metadata. And I'll show you the stuff that I'm interested in. So every cell phone can do this. I run this program, and I find I've got all this EXIF data, all this kind of stuff. Where's the GPS stuff? I can run another command and just filter some of that stuff out. So JPEG, oh, here we are. GPS latitude, GPS longitude. I can take these values, hit Google Maps with them, and embed a map inside of my document. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you my pictures that I'm working with. Sorry, I just got to bring them up here. All right, so here's some of the junk I want to get today. Some press board, didn't have a truck. Oh, it's over on my other screen. Hang on. Here's some press board just leaning against a fence. It's been abandoned. That's what I want. Here's some cabinets. I love to get like the hardware, door knockers, all that kind of stuff. I'm always on the lookout for that kind of thing. And this was out back the Home Depot. This stuff is great for rocket stove stuff, like metal piping and all that kind of stuff. So this is the start of my web application. Each one of these has some GPS information in it. I'm going to cheat a little bit today because I took out that longitude and latitude, and I'm just going to hard code it. But as we go through the course, I'll make it so that I can take a picture, upload it, and then just generate these maps automatically. So first thing I need to do, and this is more instructional here, I've got to get these files on Cloud 9. So we're going to go really slow. Whoops. Where'd it go? There we are. All I want to do is shrink that thing. Okay, so a little bit of organization. I'm going to create a new directory, new folder. I'm going to call it images, and this is where I'm going to store all the ones I took on my phone. And then from here, and you can do this on Cloud 9, you can just select what you want to copy. They make it nice and easy for you. And you drag and drop it. So this is going to take a couple seconds because these images are at least 3 megabytes a piece. In the meantime, we can start, maybe we'll structure this as a blog. So we're going to give ourselves that we'll use some of these semantic tags. We'll use article. Watch your indentation. So my first article is going to have, I'm just going to have a description. I'll make it kind of small because I don't need a title or anything. But I'll say, in this header, I'll put a description. I'll make it an H3. So what was the first one? So abandoned press board. All right. So there's my first one. I want to go really slow here. So I'm just going to do a quick refresh. Make sure I don't have any syntax errors. And you guys should do this too. So not looking like much yet, but we're going to fill it up with content. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure that I don't get to a state where I make some terrible mistake and I can't go back. So I'm going to have to use git. What's the first thing I have to do down here? Or what do I typically do? You don't have to do this. Git status. All this tells me is that, well, something's changed here. I've got a whole bunch of untracked images because I added these ones brand new. And I've also modified my index.html page. So I'm going to show you a couple of shortcuts here. Git commit, you've already seen this one. You've seen me do -m for message, but I can also use -am because if you've noticed, I didn't actually add anything, right? Usually I go git add index.html or git add images. Here I say git add everything. I'll say update web page purpose, I guess. I don't know. It's changed. It used to be a Halloween greeting. Now it's this app for my salvage hobby here. All right. Let's check git status again. Okay, so that first one went away, but I still have these untracked images. That git -am will not add images that were not explicitly added to version control. All this is telling me is that I've added 3 new images, like you saw me do, but they're not under version control. When I say git push, they're not going to go to GitHub. I say git add images. Now they're under version control. Now they're staged. Now we can attach a message. So let's say git status again. Seems to go slow sometimes. I did press enter. I wonder if there's something else I can shut down over here. Here we go. Okay, here we are. So there's my enters coming in. So now I've got some new files, but they're still not ready to go. I still have to attach that message. So I'll say git commit. I can do am. I can do just m. In this case, it doesn't matter. Oh, now it's slowing again. Sorry, just bear with me. I must insist this is a Cloud 9 problem and not a Dan problem. All right. Oh, I thought it did something. No, it's still unresponsive. All right, we'll start from scratch if it ever comes back. Let's get rid of some of these guys. Okay, what I'm going to do, just because this is getting a little bit ridiculous, I'm just going to refresh the workspace. So this is going to take a couple seconds to start up again. But it looks like we lost some sort of connection. While I was doing that, if you will excuse me, get some water. Okay, so we're kind of back to where we started. Let's try that. Okay, -AM, get first junk images. There we go. All right, there we are. So get status, get status. Nothing new to commit. Everything is up to date in this repository, but it's different from what's in GitHub. So it's not a bad idea. Just, you don't have to do this every single time. But, every now and then, just hit git push. It takes you hardly any time. Then you've got your work somewhere else. All right. So we've added a little bit of material. Let's bulk this up a little bit. So I'm going to add another one. I'll do one for each. So this one's going to be metal shelving and pipes. And one more. Did I do my, oh yeah, there's the abandoned press board. Oh yeah, cabinets. And scrap wood. All right, really slow, refresh. Now I hope I'm not going too fast, right? Now you understand the idea of nesting. You remember some of the language, attributes, tags, elements, all that kind of stuff. Please stop me if I'm going too fast here, because I just added a whole bunch of different content. Most of it's just replicated, but see how I've organized this with the big box on the outside, the head, which is where we get our styles, we get our JavaScript usually. And then we've got the header. And in fact, we could even make this a special header. We could just say header like this. So it's not even part of an article, but why not, right? Kind of might make it, might be helpful in the future. There we go. Okay, so far so good. It's pretty mediocre page. I'm going to add some pictures. We'll go with the easy stuff first, and then we'll get to the hard stuff. Say image source. Now, when you're doing this, now this is kind of weird here. Finding the path I know is going to be challenging, especially for people who haven't done this before. When we're talking about web servers here, this web server is living in this home directory right alongside index.html. So I know that I can provide a relative path. I just have to assume that this server, which it is running out of this directory. It's easy to find where these images are. Can one of you help me out? What do I type in here, knowing that all my images are stored in an images directory?
Slash images.
That's a good guess.
You have to do ... before it.
Not in this case. Now, the ... I'm glad you brought that up, is kind of a special, it's a directory name. It's special. If we look at our LL down here, this is just the contents. You see some familiar stuff, README, images, and index. ... means the one above. So I can take a look and see what's in there. So a whole bunch of stuff, right? We don't need to worry about that. So that's all Cloud9 stuff. The other one is the single dot. So if this is the directory immediately below me, what do you suppose the single dot is? It's a good guess. It's not. It's actually the current directory. The directory you're sitting in. So just let me demonstrate. I say cd images, change into the images directory. I hit LL. Oh, look at that. There's cabinets, scrap wood JPEG. I got all my images. So I'm up there. So I say cd back, or dot, that's going to take me back to where I was. If I say cd dot, I don't go anywhere. Maybe that seems silly, but it's actually very important. So I'm going to go back to my previous directory with the dot. I look inside. Oh, there's all the familiar stuff. My README file, my index directory, my index.html. Okay, so I like this. This actually might work. /images. We'll see in just a second. So we need abandoned pressboard, and I need the file name. And it's just pressboard.jpg. Sorry. All right, so we're going slow. This is one of these weird ones. I don't need to do this. Remember, every image or every tag has a closing tag. This doesn't make sense to the browser. This is one of those exceptions. It doesn't have a closing tag. So I'm going to take that out. Otherwise, it'll do something funny. Let's see if it works. So if you're right, we should see it. Oh, good. Wonderful. There's my abandoned pressboard leaning up against the fence. Way too big, right? We need to put this down so we can see it, hopefully, ideally on a cell phone, but just for our purposes, just make it smaller on the screen. Now, it just occurred to me that usually I do this with CSS. I'm not even sure this is what you can do in HTML5 anymore. So I'm going to try to set one of these attributes. So I'm going to try to make it smaller. Cell phone image is very big. I'm going to say, let's make it 400 pixels. Let's see if this works. I'm not even sure this is going to work. Oh, there. Okay, so that's a little bit better. I'm going to even make it smaller, though. I'm going to make it like 200 pixels. Whoops. Just so we can see more on the screen. Yeah, much better. Okay, so let's do the same for the other ones as well. I actually didn't think this was going to work. Usually the slash means root directory. This is what I would have said without the slash. What's the difference? There's a big difference, actually. That is Adobe being very friendly to you. Okay, so I'm just going to stick to my own obsessive compulsive ways and leave it like that. Okay, so metal shelving. That's the next one. Metal shelving. We can speed it up a little bit, I think. We'll go and we'll insert another one down there. This is the cabinets and scrap wood. There we go. So very easy stuff. Not too different than what you're doing with Finstagram. You know, this is just basic HTML stuff. Now, these are, again, very big images, each like 3 megabytes. So it's no wonder they're taking so long. That's a problem that's going to have to be solved in a future class. So this one kind of sucks because it was like a landscape photo, so it's way too small, but, you know, we can make that bigger as well, I guess. We'll set that one to 400 just because. So I'm setting a new value to this attribute, just some of the lingo, right? Width is an attribute. Cabinets and scrap wood, much more readable. Everything's looking good, you know, at least in terms of the underlying structure. This is just the skeleton. Now we got to get to the good stuff. We need a map to go along with all this like wonderful junk that you can find in alleys. So now I'm going to cheat a little bit. Oh, all my Cloud9 crashed. Hang on. So what I did while I'm waiting for this thing to come up, I opened up a developer account with Google. So I have to have some way to talk with the Google API, and I need to provide it a special code. Anyone can do this. You can go and just sign up, give your app a name or give your project a name. They'll give you a unique API key, which allows you to retrieve maps or retrieve coordinates based on longitude and latitude and all that kind of stuff. So the one I've got, I called it Recycle Freedom at the time. This is my salvage application. They don't usually make it too obvious, but there is, oh, here it is. Here's my semi-secret key now. See this weird string of characters? This is what Google needs from me to make these requests. Can't do it without it. So I've already got that. I've got some boilerplate code, and I keep trying to bring it up, but my Cloud9 keeps crashing. It's coming. I promise you. Now, before it gets away from me, I better just grab it. Hang on. Okay. Okay, so this is some of the code that Google provides for you. So it's going to look a little bit more complicated, but really we'll just break it down. We'll just identify each component so that you understand what's going on. This is what I just copied and pasted. I'm using what's called an iframe. And this is kind of like, you have a service, or someone has a service that you want, and they want to provide it for you in a little window on your web page. That's what the iframe is. I think iframes are kind of discouraged, but then it's like Google, so who are you going to argue with, right? You just got to do it. Here's my API address. We have this iframe element. We've set the width, not unlike what we did for each of the images. We provided a couple things. Do we want a border around this thing? The 0 says no, we don't. And so no border. And then the source. So this is when my page loads, it's going to call this URL with the coordinates that I provided from the images I took on my cell phone, and it's going to embed that map inside the page. Now I've got to actually get those coordinates. I have to do a little bit of manual stuff this afternoon. So I'm going to grab those here. If this looks complicated, it kind of is. This is just something that comes with time. Here's my key. That's the one I showed you at the developer's console. Here's that query string. And all I'm doing, is providing it latitude and longitude, I think. Maybe it's longitude and latitude. I'm not sure which one comes first. But let's see if it works. So just one simple tag. It's a little bit more complicated than what we're used to. I press refresh. Is it going to work for me? Well, it's kind of down the page here, but that's pretty good. Or maybe not. That doesn't look like it's close to my house. Hang on, let's try that again. Oh, something's going on. Best place to look when something like this happens is Inspector. Now, I showed you how to open the Inspector by right-hand clicking. The shortcut for me, and there's probably a shortcut for you as well, but I do Control-Shift-J. I think for you Mac people, it might be Control-Shift-I, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Usually, if there's a problem hitting an API, you're going to get some sort of message in the console. Not exactly sure why this is happening. If I hit refresh, doesn't look like it, so this is debugging. Now you're watching me debug. I have no idea what's happening here. Let's try maybe taking a look here. I've got my key. This is the API key that was provided to me by Google. Oh, I've got my query string. A good way to debug this would be just to highlight this entire URL I can get it. Come on. There we are. Ah, there we are. That's all I'm going to get. See if it works in the browser. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's just try. I'll work on this, but I'm going to put these other 3 maps in, and hopefully I'll be able to figure out what's going on. So here's this guy. I'm going to do another. Actually, you know what? I'm going to copy and paste from my good code that I know is working.
Could it not be working because there's no bracket on the iframe thing?
Is there none? Oh, no, that. Okay, so good question. Thank you for that. Well, you see how, what's a good example here? Here's a tag with an attribute, the source attribute. That's no different than doing this, which is kind of what just happened down there. Right? It's still going to find the image. The return, the white space that we put in the document, that's for us. That's not for the computer. The computer doesn't care. So what I did there, now I'll do the reverse for this other one. So there is actually a bracket. It's just way at the end of this guy. Now, did I just forget a comma? Not a comma. Let's try that again. I'm just kind of keeping my fingers crossed. It's just going to start working. Welcome to programming. Oh, I still got that big map. Okay, I'm going to try to put a couple other ones in. Just hang on. I'm going to use some of this good code I've got over here. And I'll get some new coordinates. There's my top one. It's very important. Always take the time just to tidy up your code. You will thank yourself later. So it's kind of a pain when you're doing it, but it pays dividends. So this was me doing it in Ruby. If I take these guys out, that's some Ruby code that you're going to get to see in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to get my coordinates from over here. I think I'm mixing up these coordinates. Is this the one? There we are. Let's see if that makes any difference. So we should have 2 maps. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is closer to home. I live up in Rocky Ridge. There's the Home Depot. So I got the maps out of order, right? Because this is, I know this was the Home Depot with the metal shelving and pipes. This is the wrong map, so this is easy enough to fix. And this one, we'll take this one out and move it somewhere else. Which one was that? We'll put it up at the top. Oh, I see it. Oh, that's what it is, right there. Here's my problem. No, yep, that's it, right there. Anyone catch what I did there? Let's see if it works first. I'll explain what happened. That's just a bug, right? It happens. It will happen. It's inevitable. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, so this is up in the Royal Oak area. That's actually still the wrong address. That's in the Country Hills area. Which is this guy down here. And one left. And then I've got one map, and then I will let you guys ask questions, or you can try to do your work. Now, One more set of coordinates. And that was for not the cabinets, not the shelving. Got the press board. Seems like I've got a duplicate here. Okay, I'm just going to put these coordinates in, and then if they're right, they're right. If not, that's fine too. All right. Now, assuming I didn't make any more goofy errors. Looks good. Here's my press board. I'll close this guy and make a little more room. My metal shelving. Pretty cool. And this is like all the nice stuff that we take for granted with Google now. We can just get driving directions, look at my truck, say, meet me here, do whatever. And there we go. Pretty cool. Any questions about that? Okay, so, oh, yes.
I noticed you use the article tag. What's the advantage of using that over, say, like the div tag, or are they not interchangeable?
The only advantage, no, and that's the thing. They are interchangeable. The article is basically just a div. The advantage is that you know as the developer what this is meant to be. I look at this, maybe it's a news site, maybe it's a blog. That's the advantage.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good question. Yes.
There's like for Google, they care as well. It helps them like
Oh, search engine.
recommendation to know parts of the page.
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. You've got some similar material. Our mentors are here. I will sit and get the video, lecture summary, and then I'll be around to help you guys.